Hey Internet! It is time for swing class. We're having a theory day and you are getting to learn from the comfort of my car because we are having a power outage on top of the rest of the stuff that's going on. So bear with me and we're going to cover some building blocks for swing and talk about how swing is really a different whole family and how it's set up than the other dance families. So we'll start broad and work our way to the small. So the swing family is unique because it actually uses the same pool of building blocks as every other dance in its family. So East Coast, Lindy, Charleston, Balboa, Blues, Collegiate Shag, they all use the same pool of building blocks, which means that you can do the movements from each one within the same song and not have to break any rules, not have to break any building blocks or make any adjustments that way in mid-dance. So you have this sort of broader pool. Every dance has 5, but it's sort of like you have this pool of 10 building blocks, and when you use these 5, it's swing, and when you use these other combination of 5, it's Charleston. So that makes you swing unique among the dance families. So the ballroom dance family, obviously, not most of your cha-cha steps can't become waltz steps and vice versa, with certain exceptions. There's a lot of crossover between dances like rumba and waltz, but that's not by design. That's by accident and drawing from a list of common shapes instead of using the building blocks that way. So our country dances are the same way, where the music largely dictates what the dance is going to be as far as speed and things like that. And in our Latin ballroom, you have versions of the same thing with the style or mechanisms of that dance. So a crossover in the cha-cha, there's a crossover in the rumba, there's a crossover in mambo, bolero, fill in the blank. But the crossover is different for each dance within the dance. Swing has more of the idea that when you do this kind of motion, it tends towards Charleston. This kind of motion tends towards East Coast. But if you have 6 or 8 counts, those ideas can be in any of the swing dances. If you have pairs of beats, if you have rock steps, if you have tilt or sway or fwa, those can be used in any of the swing dances. So the class for today was marked down as East Coast Swing, single rhythm, and we're going to talk about that first as far as what the building blocks are, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about swing within itself. So the first building block for swing is going to be, well, basically most of the building blocks are going to be tension related except for the last one. So first building block is when your frame is at rest, you do an odd number of weight changes on an even number of beats. That's a fancy way of saying if I'm not having any tension, I'm going to do a slow or a triple, or some of you out there, you know who you are, we might do a double with a dig or a tap there. But it's 1 or 3 weight changes on 2 beats. So taking the amount of music as a slow, or 1, 2 counts. So a slow would be 1, 2 on the same foot, and a triple would be 1 and 2, 3 weight changes on 2 beats. So that's at rest. So that's your first building block for swing, is if you have no tension. Next up, we've got a singular point of tension in swing. It causes a rock step. So this is how you build the basic. Your very, very first motion that you're going to make is going to have that tiny push to send the partners away from each other into a rock step. That's the idea that you have now 2 counts, and the rock step takes up that same music block that the slow or the triple did, 1, 2. Only it's every beat, 2 motions for 2 beats instead of an odd number. So our singular point of tension creates a rock step. And for us, in the swing family, the rock step is defined as go, back, and return. It's 2 weight changes, 2 motions. I know that some of the country dances, some of the line dances use the word rock and the word pivot differently. But in this case, a rock step in swing means that you're going back to the ball of your back foot and then replacing onto the front foot. Now, because this point of tension can happen at any time, it means that your rock step can ultimately eventually happen on either foot. Most of our common shapes have the leader rocking with the left and the follower rocking with the right foot, but you can actually, any of your 8-count steps, etc., would have the leaders rocking back on the right. Okay, we've got 2 down. Third building block is that sustained tension, and sustained tension is going to be taking you 2 weight changes, 2 beats in a line or a curve in a direction. And so the walk of a Lindy or a West Coast swing is an example of this. Anytime you do the wheels or the walk backs, any of those kinds of motions, you're doing a pair of walks, a pair of quicks over 2 beats in the same direction or in a curved direction. So that's a little bit hard to differentiate from the rock step. It is still tension making a pair of beats with a pair of steps, but a rock step is specifically go and come back, whereas your sustained tension will cause a continuation on a line or a curve. Three building blocks out of the way, and we've got our 4th one is opposing tension, and this one's probably the trickiest one. So opposing tension means exactly what it sounds like, tension going in 2 different directions at the same time. Most commonly, this is going to be when the hands go apart. Followers, since you're always trying to do equal and opposite, universal rule of following, when the leaders draw their hands apart, you're going to try to bring your hands, pull them back to the middle with the same amount of tension as whatever the leader provides. Leaders, you won't have to overdo this very much. They'll usually be able to tell with just a little bit of those hands pulling away from each other that you're switching to our 4th building block, which is that opposing tension locks us in place and causes us to micromanage all sets of feet together in the same shape without changing shapes. So a lot of times this takes the feeling of a break in the music. So if you hit that break with a pause or a jump, any kind of motion where you need to be the same as your partner, footwork mirrored. Same with you're doing Charleston or Balboa, and you need to, or collegiate shag especially, where you need to be on the same rhythm feet in the air changing. You're going to have opposing tensions. Collegiate shag now, opposing tension there is going to mostly be compression inward. East Coast Lindy are going to use outward usually for that 4th building block. And then the other way you can use that opposing tension is actually you can use, I'll tell you about momentum in our 5th building block, but once you have momentum down, you can use momentum as one of the directions of tension. So I can send my follower out with a little bit of momentum, and I can take my body the other way, and I can create a lock or a freeze or a pose that way as well. So that brings us to our 5th and final building block for swing, which is our momentum. Momentum in swing continues until it runs out or it's acted upon. And generally it's going to run out at the end of a pair of beats. So that means it's either going to be a triple or a walk or a rock step, and then it'll be run out for that. So what does that mean for us? That means that turns continue walking through space until, in the case of East Coast swing, usually a rock step. And that differs from like our Latin dances where our turns go and then come back to a point like you're being on a magnet. The swing dance turns will just continue down that line or down that curve. For East Coast, uses a lot of the curves for that. But all the passes and catches and in Lindy, you get to start combining that momentum with things like flaw and free space and stretch and all those kinds of ideas. In East Coast, the momentum continues as mostly the idea that wherever that leading hand points, that's the line now for the turn to take place on. So that's also why generally only one of you will travel on turns, you can actively change places, etc., where you're both traveling, but it does take a more practiced connection on both sides for that to function normally. So, all right, Internet, you've survived my big lecture about swing building blocks, and I was going to talk a little bit, I guess, the rhythm. Your single, double, and triple rhythms in swing really just boils down to how fast the music is. So if the music is too slow to do your single swing, then you can do one of the others. And the double swing generally will be the least common of the three rhythms used. You can cut and paste, you can splice them together, you can fill any pair of beats with any of those three sets of rhythms. So if you want to go slow, slow, rock step, or if you want to go rock step, triple step, slow, or rock step, double, slow, or rock step, slow, triple step, you've got all kinds of combinations that you can fill as long as it's a single, an odd number of weight changes on an even number of beats. You have a lot of free reign for kickball changes and runs and syncopations and any number of things to fill those singles and triples and doubles with. So, all right, that has been our swing class. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you can support us on Patreon, I really appreciate it. That website is patreon.com/partnereddance. QCsoda.com, the website will have all of our online how to find us, and the channel for all of your YouTube classes here, of course, is the Partnered Dance. So we appreciate you guys. Thanks for chatting shop and doing a little in the car swing dancing with me, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Internet.